everybody. Happy Tuesday. I don't know why Tuesday's a special day. It really isn't. Just day I happen to be streaming on. Let me adjust my microphone. Oh, hold on. Testing, 1, 2. There we go. Didn't have my settings correct. Sorry about that. I know sometimes changing the setting thing kind of makes a irritating sound. So if it did, I apologize. I'm just waiting the requisite 5 minutes since I have now tweeted and discorded and all the rest of it. I don't use Instagram anymore, so I have not insted. Insted? Is that what the youngsters say now? Insted? So I'm just giving people time to get here. Yeah. And I'm just looking through, making sure I posted everywhere I should have. I believe that I have. Yeah. You know what I like? Here's a thing that I like. Standards manuals. I really like those. And if you don't know what a standards manual, in fact, I'm going to, as we have about 3 minutes or so, let's see if there's any that I could buy that I don't have. I've always liked the idea of these, but then a few years ago, standards manual, I already have everything I believe they sell. I'm pretty sure I do. So there's a website called standardsmanual.com, which sells standards manuals. And these are books that are kind of guidance for, if people are posting public things or whatever, it's, okay, here's the colors we use, and okay, here's the font we use, and that type of thing. And let's see, I have the best one that I've got so far, and I have to look, because, you can get the originals for thousands and thousands of dollars. Obviously, I'm not going to do that. I don't have that kind of money, and generally, they're not in the best shape anyway. So I understand why some people value those. I'm not necessarily one of those type of collectors. I'm fine. There are certain things that there is a value in having the original for. That is, you know what I just realized is, hold on a minute. I didn't have I knew something looked weird about my screen. Now I know what it was, which is I didn't have it, spanned to my screen correctly. So I'm sitting there going, why does this look funny to me? That would be why. It's because it was not properly sized. That's interesting. That doesn't resize. Whatever. It shouldn't matter. So whatever. So anyway, the one that I really like there's two that I really like. Two. One is the New York City Transit Authority Graphic Standards Manual, which I think is one of the most beautiful volumes I've ever seen. Just magnificent. And then the one I like second best is the 1975 National Aeronautics and Space Administration, or NASA, Graphic Standards Manual, which is from when they had changed to the what they call the worm font, which I think is NASA's best font. I love the worm font, where it's very 80s, so it definitely has obviously it's 70s, 1975, but it's got a very dated look to it. I love it. I think that is their best font. And so that book goes through and shows you, again, colors, how they wanted certain things laid out. It has that font. It has their beautiful red and grays and whites that they used. It has how the actual font is to be used on the space shuttle, which I love the space shuttle. It has logos and stuff like that. So between the New York City subway manual and the NASA manual, those are fantastic. I do have the 77 EPA one as well. That's not as exciting, I have to admit. It's a little bit duller, but I still like it. I did get I'm scrolling through this website, so I got the New York City Transit Authority Objects book. That is photographs of things from the subway's history. That's probably more of an appeal to me as a New Yorker than it is to most people, but it's pretty neat. There's some nice iconography in there, that type of thing. So I don't know of a lot of other places to do this. I backed originally, there's the New York City subway map debate. I have to look at that one. I'm not sure if that's really for me. But anyway, standards manuals are great. You can find scans of them around online. It's tough to actually find good books of them. That's why I backed the one for the one on standards manual. Okay, 5 minutes. Well, not that it matters, you saw it, but I'm going to roll my opening credits, say this is how well I should just rearrange this so it's sort of logical how you bounce from one to the other. Anyway, I haven't even looked at these other two. I don't even know what these other two things are. It doesn't matter. So, yeah, standards manuals. I love them. I love them. I love standards manuals where you can see how they came up with stuff and what proper usage is. Like the Subway one, that one has exact measurements on how you're supposed to... Why isn't the thing counting down? Did it count down? Did I miss it? Did I literally miss the countdown? I probably did, didn't I? Hold on. Boy, I'm really... No, it's not counting down. That's interesting. Huh. Okay, well, that's not my fault then. Screw it. Let's go to it. I mean, it has to have been 45 seconds, right? So whatever. Okay, let's make sure. So you can see this, right? You should be able to. It's showing up on my screen. Yes, okay. Anyway, standards manuals. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Okay, by the way, here's another aside. I found a drawing on my iPad today that I don't remember doing. I mean, I could tell I did it. It's not like somebody borrowed my iPad and, stealth drew on it. But I found this skull that I did. I remember thinking about doing a skull. Yeah, this. I remember wanting to do this drawing. I don't remember doing it. But that'll probably be a future stream because I can actually do a lot with that just from the base level because this is just a very superficial drawing of a skull. I sort of remember I wanted to draw a skull with its mouth open for something, but I couldn't even tell you what it was for. Couldn't even tell you. Don't remember. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. Let's get back to the Eyeball Blob because that's kind of where we're at. So, okay. So we did a little, we're going to do some color stuff in here. Real simple color stuff because this is me and I'm not a deep color person. But we're going to figure out some color for the actual flesh bags of the eyeballs. But let's go ahead and color right. Let's color all our eyeballs in because it's kind of weird that we only got 3 colored in. That I'm not too much of a fan of that. So let's find our color layer. Here it is. And let's see. Let's go ahead and pick an ink layer or an ink pen. And we'll go ahead and lay some color in here. Yeah, standards manuals are great. I really, really like standards manuals because I do actually, as we've talked about many times on our show, Leno and I both have this value for not necessarily a lot of restraint, but there is an importance with boundary or boundaries in creativity. Unrestricted, completely unrestricted freedom is not generally good. Well, I don't think it's generally good for a lot of things, but let's just stick to this in creativity. I don't think completely having no one say, maybe that's not a great idea, is not always the best way to create something. If you want an example of how, see George Lucas and others. Shouldn't just narrow it to George Lucas. There was somebody else recently who did that. Actually, I would say that Kevin Smith is kind of a victim of this too. Although on a much different scale, because I don't think it's really even fair to compare Kevin Smith and George Lucas. There's quite a gulf between those two creative individuals. But it's the same idea that when there's nobody to say, hey, maybe you don't want to do another movie where it's just fart jokes the whole time and using the same kind of characters, saying the same things. Yeah. Although, Kevin Smith is an interesting individual to delve into in terms of his creative output because I don't know that he's ever been fairly served by the chances that he's had, or opportunities, I shouldn't say chances, the opportunities he's had outside of his own stuff, his, what is it called, the Askewniverse, the Jay and Silent Bob stuff. When he's done things outside of there, it's generally not been well received, but I would be interested in why that is. I don't think that now that I think about it, though, he has talked openly about not being a good director and has done so in a way that makes you wonder if he really cares. If he doesn't care, then I have no sympathy for him. If he's... In which case, and that's not even necessarily a criticism, it really isn't. Look, if you can do something that you enjoy, if I had the opportunity to just make movies with my friends all the time and get paid for it, yeah, I'd probably do that too. I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and tell you I wouldn't, but I don't know. I would hope that I'd want to get a little better at what I was doing. That's one of the things I always say about Len Kabasinski is. One of his central things is that he doesn't want to just do the same movies over and over. And that's very clear because if you go back and watch his earlier movies, you can see that he has increased not only in his ability, but that increase in ability and that quest to keep improving has led to more money, which has led to better looking movies, which has led to more money and better looking movies and better people in them. And it just goes on and on and on. And he works with the same people. So he is a kind of a comparable thing to Kevin Smith. The difference with Len is that he didn't have a viral runaway hit that netted him the ability to just make... And, there's an interesting question in there, which is, had he had that kind of out of nowhere success, it's an interesting thing to contemplate if somebody who got massively successful overnight and then kind of did nothing with it. And there's many examples of that through all forms of entertainment. One-hit wonders exist in many different ways. Although you can't really say Kevin Smith is a one-hit wonder because Mallrats, I believe, critically didn't do well but made money. And then Dogma did... Chasing Amy, I think, was... Chasing Amy has a Criterion edition, which is really weird to me. I that feels like a let's just do something pop culture-y thing. I don't know why that movie would deserve a Criterion edition. I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something. Chasing Amy was an okay movie. I don't dislike it, but I never really thought it was all that good. I mean, I remember when it came out, it was a big deal, but it felt like it was a big deal because of who was in it, as opposed to it actually being that. And I guess because some of the stuff that was being covered was edgy for the time. Maybe you had a. I don't know. I don't know why Chasing Amy caught fire. I really don't, because I don't think it is that good of a movie. It's not terrible, but it's certainly not a movie I would ever put into a Criterion edition. It's kind of strange that movie is there. That is, I have to admit, funny moments, not certainly by no means Kevin Smith's worst movie, and not even in the bottom. Well, let me think about this. Probably not even in the bottom 5, as far as and obviously it's a bit of a it's a bit of a weighted list when you put stuff like Cop Out and Tusk in there, which I watched Tusk and I went, okay, I kind of see what he's going for here, and I didn't think it was necessarily. I have more sympathy for that movie than I think the most do, because I feel like I can kind of see where he was going, and I will give leeway when I can kind of understand when somebody's when their aspirations, when your aspirations outreach your talent, I have a little more sympathy, because and this is what I mean about it's sort of a shame that, and you wonder about if Kevin Smith had not had that success. Let's say he'd had moderate success. Let's say Clerks had come out and it had made enough money for him to pay off his credit cards and a little on top, but it hadn't been kind of a pop culture thing, but it made enough money that Miramax or whoever said, well, okay, you know what, for your next one we'll give you twice what you had before and let's see how that does. And then that was, let's say Mallrats, because I just assumed it would be the same ideas. I don't think ideas change. I think approach changes and other things change. So if it had been a gradual escalation, as opposed to phenomenal, indie darling super hit, and again, pop culture. I mean, I remember watching Clerks every weekend for 6 months because it was such a neat, different thing. And part of it was because I knew that Kevin Smith was not necessarily a local guy because he was from Jersey and I was from New York, but still, tri-state area. There's a tri-state thing. So it's, there was a localish element to it. So it was kind of like, whoa, this guy, he just went and he made this movie with friends of his at a place that he had access to, and look what it did. And so there, and it is funny. I do think Clerks is funny. It's juvenile, but it's funny. I mean, it is. It does in many ways hold up even now. Although I do think there is, and I did a short show on this, I think. Pretty sure I did a short show on it where I said a lot of Clerks' power is a you had to be there moment. There was a zeitgeist thing to that where you were part of what a lot of people were doing at the same time, which was watching this weird kind of gross out humor movie. This is pre-Apatow and Apatow, however you're supposed to pronounce his last name, stuff where he was doing, juvenile humor. And so there was an element of kind of being with it to see that movie that gets lost now because, you know, it's a known quantity. So that particular aspect of, you know, we're in on something that nobody else is. And, you know, and then, well, now it was a more benign version of what unfortunately happens a lot now, which is, you know, I knew this thing was neat before you did. So I don't like that you like it. At that time, we didn't have, well, talking as if I'm the representative for an entire generation. But I don't remember that jealousy element to stuff that was successful in smaller pop culture circles. I'm not going to say it was completely absent. I'm sure it wasn't. I'm sure there were, the term they use now is gatekeepers or gatekeeping. I'm sure those people were around, but I didn't feel like that was something. I wanted more people to see what I thought was awesome, not, oh, well, now that everybody thinks it's awesome, it sucks. I never had that mentality. I sort of have grown into distrusting what is popular with a lot of people now, and that's mostly because I think we've really kind of devolved in what for something good or bad. And I say that and that sounds miserably pretentious, and it is. So that's why I also try to fight against that instinct. But what the larger point is, at that age, when did Clerks come out? I don't remember. Let me see. Hold on a minute. Is Clerks 92 or 95? I don't remember. Hold on a minute. Let me see here. I will take a quick minute to look up Clerks and see what year it's from. So I apologize, but it does factor into my rant for this evening. 1994. So in 94, okay, I have to do math here. In 94, I would have been 16. So at 16, I wanted more people to like the stuff I like. Now, this was, of course, you know, this is before Marvel and that stuff. So the comics were not something that you were, you know, the cool kid. That was still a little ways away. So when you feel like nobody, you know, that you know about, there is some kind of turning point that happens between, man, this thing is great, and I want everybody to understand it. Because I understand it's great, and I want them to know it. And everybody likes what I like now. Ruined. I never really had that when I was younger, and I if anything, I'm sort of delighted when people like the quirky, weird stuff that I like, because I remember before that kind of thing was everywhere. There wasn't really, the geek culture did not exist, or nerd culture, whatever you want to use for it. That was not around when I was younger. You didn't really go around telling everybody you read comic books. You kind of, you know, you acknowledged it with people you knew read them, but it's not like you went around broadcasting that you read comics. That was kind of an invitation to have people laugh at you and or get beat up. It's a very different world now. But that's what I mean about there wasn't a protectionism around pop culture stuff. I never didn't want people to know that I liked something and hope that they liked it too. Because I was, you know, I certainly wasn't a popular kid in school or anything like that. Not when I was younger. Not till probably, and I'm not going to ever say I was popular. That would be a gross distortion. But the fact that I could draw made high school easier for me. But even then, you know, it was kind of, there still weren't a lot of people who liked comics. It was a small group of people. They didn't tend to sit with the pretty people, you know. And so I kind of floated between different groups of people. It was a weird thing, and I think I really can't attribute it to anything other than the fact that I was able to draw. Outside of that, you know, I have no way to. I apologize. I'm getting a message, so I'm just making sure it's nothing important. Yeah. But I don't know what else I would attribute that to, because, like I said, I was not, you know, I wasn't particularly smart, so the smart people weren't, you know, particularly fond of me or anything like that. Like, I wasn't smart enough to be in with the people that you knew were going to have no problems in college. I was not in that. No, I was not in that group. I was friends with enough normal people. I don't know what our term to use, or kind of the middle classes of high school, that I wasn't really so much in with the real hard. I mean, I can't play chess. I admire the game, but I can't play it. So I was automatically sort of out with the nerdiest of the nerd people. So I wasn't really there either, even though I liked comics and all that stuff. Wasn't there. Obviously, I've never had athletic ability. So the idea of hanging out with any of the more athletic people, or the jocks, if you want to use that term, whatever term you want, that was not an avenue that was open to me. So high school was a strange thing, because I kind of had a little of everything that most people go through. Because generally what high school was for a lot of people that I knew was they were either in with the in crowd, or they were part of like the angry outcast groups, take your pick, punks, goths, whatevers. Emo didn't really exist when I was in high school, not the way you understand it today. That those people would have, there were goth and emo were kind of blended. They and maybe they always are. See, I don't know enough. I wasn't in the scene enough to know. So it always felt to me like goth and emo are separate things now. Maybe they're not. What do I know about anything? Nothing. But I was always kind of just in this weird in-between space. So, it was high school was very odd for me. Because depending on the day, quite literally, depending on the day and what was going on that day, I could be part of any group. And it was a strange. At the time, I didn't think anything odd about it, except that I didn't think there were a lot of other people like me. There were a couple other people who could draw in high school. And they were sort of like me. So it felt like there was just an extra small group of people. But, years later, understanding how high school dynamics worked for most people, I quickly figured out, oh, wow, I was kind of in this weird bubble area where I was neither popular nor unpopular. Almost like a middle class type group in high school, which is just strange. Where was I going with this? Oh, because Clerks. So I was always excited when anybody liked stuff that I liked, because my interests were certainly very strange, and because there was no one group like that I felt like, okay, our eyeball colors are done. Since there was no one group that I really felt like I was in with, I was delighted when anybody liked something I liked. So, all right, so we got our eyeball color. Let's go ahead and create a white background layer. And we're going to do that for the eye, the actual eye, what do you call this? The whites of the eyes, I guess. Now, they may not remain white, but for now, let's go and just to make this a little easier to see, let's knock this down. There we go. Yeah, where the hell was I going with this? Oh, so the Kevin Smith thing. So I wonder about people like Kevin Smith. If his journey to where he ended up in terms of being able to make movies now, if that had been a longer journey, not necessarily a hard one. I don't like the idea that people have to suffer for their art, or that you have to go through tough things. I've never agreed with this idea that you have to suffer to be, suffering builds anything, or hard work, whatever it is, what. But at the same time, I do think I think extremes of either side are not good. So while I don't think that you should literally have to suffer for your art necessarily, I mean, there's some people who want to, fine, go ahead. I'm not telling you not to do it however it works for you. If that's the only way that works for you, then do your art how you got to do it. But at the same time, I also think there's a downside if it's too easy. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's nice to have natural talent, but I think if you rocket straight to the top, then you do have that risk where, okay, there's no improvement to be aimed for. So certainly, don't get me wrong, it's comfortable to be there. If you are a phenom, I'm sure it's very gratifying in a lot of ways. But I don't know that it benefits you in the sense of growth. I don't know that it benefits you to not have to, not struggle's the wrong word for it, but to put an effort in, to do something towards that. Because I think that if it takes a little bit of time, then there's a good chance that part of that time will be spent on improving the craft. So I would be curious if Kevin Smith. I mean, there's no way to know. I don't have access to alternate timelines, but I wonder if that early success was in fact not the best thing for his future. I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't think he's poor by any stretch. He's doing what he wants to do, but I wonder where he might have been had it taken a little longer and a little bit more work, or a little bit more polishing on the actual. If he'd been forced, or if it had been beneficial to him. Again, I don't like the coercion stuff. I don't want to make it like it's somebody's got a crowbar to your skull. If he had felt the drive, there we go, felt the drive to make up for his directorial deficiencies, and then seen that as a path to success, would that not have been better for him? Now, maybe not. Maybe he would have simply never made more movies. Maybe he would have made 2 or 3 movies, faded in obscurity, and we'd never know his name. I am unable to predict the future, I'm sad to say. Otherwise, I'd be down at the track. But I wonder about it. I do wonder about these things. When you read about some of these monstrous people, who are often rich people, and you look at, how they got there, there does seem to be a familiar pattern to people who have little appreciation for certain things and what they lacked in having to earn their wealth in some way. Again, I'm not advocating that anybody should be put through a grist mill or anything like that. I don't like the idea that people have to struggle, but I don't think it's the worst thing, to once in a while have to stretch a bit. Struggling versus stretching. Stretching good, struggling bad. Put it like that. Stretching versus struggling. Kind of like that. It's a nice little catchphrase for this episode. I don't even know how I got to the Kevin Smith thing. How did I get to the Kevin Smith thing? I really can't even remember how I got to this. Can't remember. I know there was some reason. Kevin Smith, Clerks, being younger. Don't remember. Sorry. My brain is shot. I've never had a good memory. And I don't think at this point in my life, at what is likely the halfway point, it's going to get any better. I mean, I know there's exercises and stuff like that, but honestly, I don't know. Maybe it would be worth trying to do memory exercises. I know it's important. I mean, I probably am. I'm probably staring down the barrel of either cancer or Alzheimer's, almost certainly. Of the two, boy, there's a choice I don't want to make, so I'm stopping that sentence right there. But at least I know there are. I do believe that brain exercises have been found to help stave off, if not Alzheimer's itself, the severity, I think, can be impacted. I should ask my friend Tyler Kochjohn, because he did a lot of work studying Alzheimer's and stuff like that. So he probably would have a more current answer, because I know he keeps on top of that stuff. I should ask him if brain games do in fact benefit Alzheimer's, or if that's one of these kind of pop culture myths, of which there are so many. But I can't imagine it would hurt. I can't imagine it actually doing... Would those be considered mimetic? No, they wouldn't. Would they? I don't think that exercising the brain could hurt. Before I use a word in its wrong context. Mimetic is a neat word. I like mimetic. But I don't think I'm using it right. I think mimetic might be related to the brain, but not actually a brain word, or, pertaining to of the brain. But whatever mental exercises. Mental gymnastics. There we go. No, you can't really combine those words. Mental gymnastics. Mentastics? Mentastics. That sounds like... Well, mentat is from Dune. Mentastics doesn't sound right. That sounds like it might already be a word. It probably is already a word. Almost everything now already is a word of some kind, or perhaps a description for a bug. Mantis memantics. Memantics superioris, or something like that. But I would imagine to doing stuff. I like crosswords. I'm not a math and science guy. Not really. Not in terms of being able to do equations. I like science. I hate math. I mean, you want to devise a torture. Pulling out fingernails is not it. Put me in front of a blackboard and tell me to solve a trigonometry equation for 7 hours, and I'll tell you anything you need to know faster than pain. Pain, I'll just pass out because I don't have a high pain tolerance. So what you'll end up doing is thinking you got about an hour to do something to me, and you'll have about 5 minutes before I just slump in the chair. So, yeah, that's not going to work out for you. But you sit there and say, all right, what I need you to do is find the remainder and then provide what x and z are in the following equations. And I will start screaming and say, yeah, okay, here's the nuclear launch codes. Good luck incinerating Nevada or whatever you're doing. And that would be it. Yeah, not good at math. Admire science. Admire people who can do math. My wife is fantastic at math. I can't compute it, man. I can't do it. She does math, and I sit there and I'm like, yeah, how? I don't, she does accounting stuff, and I'm just, I have to make, oh, I just realized my thing went off. Hold on, I'll fix that. I have to do math, honestly, I have to round up numbers to like zeros. So if you want me to add, I don't know, 98 and 72 and 53, I have to make it 55 and 70 and 100. And then I can do it and I can subtract whatever I rounded up by. But to do that in my head, those three numbers, would take a lot of brain cycles. Would do to my brain what apparently doing this stream does to the processor on my MacBook. Haha. Tied in a self-deprecating observation along with a complaint, all in one. Not something most people can do as smoothly as that. So yeah, math, science I like space. I like the stuff in science. I'm always marveled by science facts. But if you were to sit there and, periodic table, yeah, even 5 minutes after you tell me that, I'm going to forget half of it. It's just my brain doesn't work that way. I mean, I'm sure there's a way for me to learn it. I have no doubt there is some, probably a non-standard teaching method or something. I don't think I have any kind of learning disability, but I certainly don't do well at testing and sitting there and listening to a lecture. That's just thinking about listening to a lecture makes me want to fall asleep. Whereas, you get me into a discussion or something like that, then even if it's a concept I don't particularly care about, maybe that's a New York element where it's like, well, I'll sit there and I'll babble on and argue about things and debate things. That stuff I can do. But I can't sit there and listen to something. Not really. Not for long. It's got to be an ADHD thing, because I notice I do that. If I'm watching something, or if I get an article to read, I will just jump between articles constantly. I can't make it to the end of an article almost ever without having to jump to another window, or I'll think of something. So that's got to be ADHD or some aspect of it, right? I mean, that's what it sounds like from what I understand. I don't know. I'm saying I'm asking somebody watching a stream to diagnose me for something. I'm just saying it sounds like it. And even the way I approach drawings, where I just jump around and stuff, this all feels like the hallmarks of what I've generally understood ADHD to involve, not be in its entirety, but involve aspects of the inability to maintain focus on things. That's the way it is. For most things, not everything, but for maybe it's stuff that I don't. No, it can't be that, because I read articles I'm interested in, because I know about that thing where people are, they just won't pay attention to something if they don't care about it. But I don't think it's that simple, because it'll happen on something that I clicked on to read. Well, why would I have clicked on it if I didn't want to, if I don't care about it, I wouldn't have clicked on it, you know what I mean? So I don't think it's that simple with me. There may be an aspect of that to it, or maybe my attention just fades too quick. I really don't know. I'm going to turn off the reds, just so I can do this in a uniform white. The red will come back, don't worry. Yeah, so I don't know. Again, that when I was in school, they weren't really testing. They weren't testing people. Actually, I mean, I don't know if they do this now, but it feels like from people I've talked to who are parents that there is more of a paying attention for potential learning issues thing than there was when I was in school. When I was in school, you had to have essentially dyslexia. Oh, my thing just shut off again. Sorry. Hold on a minute. Dyslexia in the form of, like, you were reversing numbers and stuff. You know what I mean? That is how you would be, it would get caught, is when you could not literally read what was in front of you because the letters or the concepts were reversing, and that was if they realized it. I mean, I know a lot of kids, well, I mean, they weren't kids, they were, students in classes I was in. I know a lot of them who went a long ways before anybody noticed what was going on because it was very easy to hide it. Because not every class I was in had a small amount of students. Well, when one teacher trying to manage a classroom full of students, it is going to be easy to miss certain things if it's not terribly obvious. And, when a child is struggling, very few children are going to be upfront about that. They'll try to cover. Geez, I did that. I did not with learning disability type stuff, but I remember, I think it was in 5th or 6th grade at one point, there was a letter sent home to my parents that I had missed 52 assignments or something like some gross number of them. And I remember my mother being astonished at, how could you miss that many assignments? We've seen you doing stuff. And it's like, well, you saw me doing stuff, but you weren't actually checking my work. And, in class, it was very easy to kind of figure out which teachers could be manipulated, not manipulated, but which ones didn't have the time to sit there reprimanding you for 15 minutes because they had to get the material out for a test or whatever. And so you could dance around those teachers real easy. You just kept kind of, okay, hold on, let me think. And eventually they'd be like, okay, we have to move on. And that was your way out. That was the evasion technique, is, war of attrition. With a teacher who's got more crap to deal with than certainly you're worth. And I say that meaning, idiot student like me who, screwed around. They're going to move on. I'm not going to waste the time. Because they know that eventually the letter about the 52 assignments will get sent home, and then the parents will take care of it. And if the parents don't, teachers can't replace them. So, if the parent doesn't want to be involved and is okay with that happening, then what's the teacher going to do? Grind everything to a halt? I mean, there are exceptional teachers, I know that. But at the same time, I couldn't blame teachers for letting me slide on stuff like that, because how much stuff they got to deal with. They're going to stop. If they had to stop for because I certainly was not the only jerk student, I know that. Because, we hung around with each other too. I'm not going to expect a teacher to grind everything to a halt because I'm being stupid. So I don't blame any of those people. And I had great teachers too. But I really don't blame the ones who didn't do that, because honestly, they had enough stuff to deal with. And I really can't criticize too harshly for not wanting to have to deal with me. All right, let's see. Where are we at here? Okay. Well, let's go ahead and let's pick a internal eyeball color. So this is going to be for these inner folds here. I'm not going to do too much of this because I'm actually tired for some reason today. I really don't know why. But let's think about what we want this color to be. We want it to be something kind of, I don't know. I kind of think something like that maybe. Some weird color like this. And we can always modify this, but let's start with, wow, that is a very bright color. Actually, I can restore the white background. Plus my voice seems to be going a little bit because, probably because it's been hot lately. I mean, I've been drinking water, but still. I don't think this is going to stay the color, but this will be a placeholder color. So we actually can, on the next stream, kind of dive into some color decisions here. We'll keep this for now just because it's something that's very contrasty to what, the white eyeball, so it's very easy to see it. And then we can mess around. I'll look at maybe some images of, I don't know, I'm kind of thinking, like undersea creatures or something like that. See if there's a nice color in there, like a shell color or, mussel color or something like that that might be useful. We'll see. But that's what we're going to do. And then the exterior will be some other kind of color. That'll be, might go more like a yellow-orange or something like that for the actual, what I'll call skin color, this stuff out here. But we'll see. And we'll do some shading work in there. We're going to kind of mess around with that a little bit. But I think we'll just leave it here for now. We now have, we're making progress here. This thing is, it's forming. So we are getting there. And then I think after this, I'll probably do that skull. Because that'll be a fun one, because I'll just kind of wing that one. Because I don't even know what I used as a reference photo for. I can't even remember doing it. So that one, I think we'll just do that one purely off the cuff. I mean, I've got the basic shading. I think I'll keep it kind of a grayscale monotone thing. And we'll do the skull thing too. Because I don't even remember drawing that thing. Again, that's not really necessarily uncommon for me. But it's bizarre that I don't remember. I remember wanting to draw it. It's just odd. But, yeah, anyway. So, eyeballs will continue next time. And then we'll move on to the skull. And unless something else more interesting comes up. Other than that, thank you for joining me on this Tuesday evening. Or if you watch it later on YouTube, thank you for watching it later. And, yeah, I think that's all I've got for tonight. I believe I will do a stream on Thursday, unless something comes up, but that is the plan. Otherwise, have a wonderful rest of your evening. Enjoy your Tuesday, morning, evening, afternoon, whatever it is, or Wednesday, or I doubt it's Monday, but perhaps you're a little bit ahead of Wednesday. Otherwise, have a wonderful rest of whatever it is for you. Take care.